Beyond the Bell, Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
About 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day, Romaine Bostick alongside Taylor Riggs counting you down to the closing bell. Caroline Hyde, she's stuck in traffic, but here to help take us beyond the bell with our global simulcast team. Carol Massar, she's not stuck in traffic. And Tim Stenovec, still not wearing a tie for all of our Bloomberg Radio listeners, Bloomberg Television viewers, and our YouTube audiences worldwide. We are here to parse through the most crucial moments of the day, Carol.
I'm going to Amazon right now and I'm getting him a tie. Listen, we did hear from Jay Powell today giving another speech, says the economy definitely making real progress, but he's looking at people at different ends, Tim, of the income strata, if you will. 20% of the lowest hiring rung, still unemployed, only 6% who are at the highest paid position. So we see that K-shaped recovery and that disconnect.
Yeah, that uneven recovery. We've talked about it before. We're going to continue talking about it. Investors today, though, still digesting earnings as well, in addition to those Fed comments, Carol. The thing that I'm watching is how well these companies have done. We got a handful of earnings early this morning. We have a handful after the bell today, but earnings have been really good. As of today, Taylor, close to 88% of companies that have reported earnings have beat on the bottom line. That's according to the latest data from Bloomberg.
And one of my favorite analyst quotes, though, Tim, was Deutsche Bank analyst coming out saying that this is one of the more frustrating comments earnings seasons that he's seen, Romaine, because everyone is doing so well, but at least when it comes to the chip makers and the stocks, the price reaction has been sort of to the downside. And so you're trying to square how much growth has already been pulled forward, how much of that's already been priced into these markets.
Yeah, but how much credence do you get? I mean, okay, 90% of the companies beat whatever, beat net profit estimates, and you got something like a pretty significant beat on the revenue growth side. But again, the bar for a lot of these companies wasn't necessarily as high as it would normally be. Here we are, though, at the end of this Monday here, getting the closing bells here in New York. Looks like 41.92, 41.93 and change is where the S&P 500 is going to settle, up 0.3%. The NASDAQ Composite down about 0.5% at 13,895. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 239 points. That's higher by about 0.7%. The Russell 2000 looks like it's going to finish the day up about 0.5%.
Yeah, a little bit of a blah day, certainly for the tech names in particular. And we'll see if the earnings that we get this week, Taylor, provide some more clarity. But I'm already focusing on the monthly jobs report Friday. I'm kind of looking ahead to get an idea of how strong this economy starts to come back.
Yeah, and I know that that's going to be something that we talk about after we get to some of the individual sectors. For our radio audience, you've energy and transports up 2 to 3%. What really stood out to me, Carol, is within transports, it's UPS, it's FedEx, it's JB Hunt, really seeing the big e-commerce and some of the railroad shipments as, yes, we are still buying hordes and hordes of items for our home. We come down here on the bottom again for the retail audience. You're off anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3%, primarily between the chip makers and some of the automakers. What stood out to me here, chip makers, that comment from Deutsche Bank, the price action isn't responding to the really good data within the automakers, Carol. One of these, of course, Tesla. The China demand concerns, that German factory concerns, that's really dragging down the individual auto sector index.
Yeah, that's a big deal because that's certainly a big part of the Tesla story. Let's talk about some of the gainers in today's trading session. Moderna, your top name in the NASDAQ 100 specifically, up about 4.5%. It's up about 80% so far this year. The headline, it's going to supply 500 million vaccine doses to the COVAX effort. So really stepping up when it comes to getting out vaccines globally. Warren Buffett, got to talk about Berkshire. We're going to talk about it a little bit later on, but that stock up almost about 2% today. Warren talking about a red hot economy. Also, it looks like we know who his successor will be, Mr. Abel. So we've got some clarity about what comes next from that. Also going to talk about Carvana. You talk about cars specifically, and this Romaine sending out his analyst calls this morning. Carvana upgraded to buy from neutral over at Bank of America. Stock up about 2%. I mentioned Berkshire. That was up about 2% as well. And then Precipio. This is not a stock that we talk about. It's a high flyer microcap biotech, and it's number one in the NASDAQ overall, up 155%, Tim, in today's session.
Well, let's look at some of those decliners. And Carol, you mentioned Romaine. Another shout out to Romaine for sending out that email that he does every morning. He puts them on Twitter, too. They're the big analyst upgrades and downgrades. Clorox, a downgrade coming from there. Clorox down just a percentage point, roughly. Clorox shares are lower because Wells Fargo's Chris Carey cut the price target to $170 from $240 after those disappointing earnings. Virgin Galactic Holdings sliding more than 9%. This, of course, the parent company of Virgin Galactic, falling today for the fourth straight day. This one, though, it comes after an essay was published in the New York Times that questioned the company's space tourism plans. Twitter down more than 1%. Novavax plunging today more than 17%. The biotech company working on that COVID vaccine. Those results from a late-stage U.S. and Mexico-based study that was expected by April. April, Taylor, has come and gone.
Not nice. Romaine gets 2 shout-outs. I get
sorry.
0. Let me try to get a shout-out with the work on the bond market that we do here every time. It is always a competition.
Always a
Romaine.
competition.
You know that better than everyone. Yields, not unch. We catch a bit on the long end. 10s and 30s down 1, 2, 3 basis points or so. Carol, some of this, of course, comes from that weak ISM numbers that we got this morning. And, of course, some comments from Warren Buffett over the weekend. I said this quote to Romaine. He says, we're seeing substantial inflation. We're raising prices. Prices are being raised on us.
Wow.
This doesn't feel transitory. And so how much of those comments coming from him also you see in the bond markets today?
Yeah, I mean, look, the inflation numbers, I mean, they're real. You're seeing those price pressures. You saw it in sort of those second tier numbers coming out of the ISM. But I guess the question really becomes here is when do you start to see that really sort of translate into sort of any meaningful movement by Jay Powell, who seems to have dug in his heels and said, look, we're willing to let this thing run hot as long as we need to.
Let's talk a little bit about Warren Buffett, because the big news today is that Buffett says that Greg Abel is his likely successor at Berkshire. Here's my question, though, guys.
Yeah.
The big question, when? It looked like that he and Charlie Munger were having a lot of fun over the weekend. This is what Warren Buffett has done his whole life, and this is what he wants to do.
Yeah, not going to walk away anytime soon. We talked with our Kat Chigalinsky, who's all things Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, and the same thing she said. You know, this is the face of the company. And Greg Abel maybe doesn't have the outgoing personality as much, maybe some would say. Nothing bad. I'm just saying that, you know, Warren Buffett likes being the face of his company, Taylor.
Well, you want to talk about personality and some of the jobs that were thrown from that, particularly within the world of Robinhood and then the world of cryptocurrencies. Really talking about some of the buying frenzy, some of the speculative behavior. I liked, of course, the comment that Robinhood sort of slightly just made like a little bit jab back.
Yeah.
But then crypto, you guys, I mean, Bitcoin, whether it's speculative bubble or not, whether it's an anti-correlation, a negative correlation asset, Romaine, or Ethereum at 3,300 today, just unbelievable.
Is that like antimatter or something? You know, well, first of all, I mean, we need to, I don't know if our Bloomberg Radio audience can actually see this, but we have a new set here, by the way. We have new music for our radio audience, too, so they can at least hear that. So I'm all inclusive here. I am curious, though, I mean, we sort of make all these jokes here about everything that's been going on with crypto and stuff, but when you talk about how this is overtaking it, there is some legitimacy here to how the funds, and particularly now some of the financial advisors, have started to turn to Ether, Tether, and some of the others as a way to sort of get into Bitcoin. And it does sort of show you that the intertwining of this actually shows that there may be a little bit more room for this to grow.
Well, all right. And for those who are listening on Bloomberg Radio, of course, watching on Bloomberg TV and also on YouTube, they did see that chart. And what's interesting is Bitcoin still a big part, right, of the digital crypto market at this point, Romaine, but nonetheless, it's been reducing. And maybe it's just a case of investors to some extent looking for an opportunity, right? A growth. Ethereum maybe has a lot more room to run, essentially, Tim.
Perhaps. I don't know.
Perhaps it's right.
I have no idea. I think I stopped trying to predict what was happening or even understand what was happening in these markets because they seem so unpredictable. I mean, who would have thought that people would become millionaires after a fake cryptocurrency that was created as a joke? Well, maybe I shouldn't say fake, but a cryptocurrency that was created as a joke based on a Shiba Inu. You know I'm talking Dogecoin.
Tim Stenovec at Bloomberg.
Just need to find my darn password, you guys, and then I wouldn't have to be here. I could retire. Let's push this story forward. We really came off of some of the weak ISM data, Romaine, this morning. Factory growth slowing because of some of those supply chain issues and what it means going forward. We are getting there. Friday jobs day, Romaine. Revisions higher. You're looking at 1 million.
Can I just tell you, I looked at this number a few days ago, and I think it was like around 960 was the average estimate of economists. It's now at 995, excuse me. You have two estimates here that are just outliers. You have over at Jefferies, they're predicting 2.1 million jobs created, and you have several folks, a couple folks here, predicting 1.5 and 1.4 million jobs created.
We are living in the era of large numbers, right? Because whether it comes to earnings, the comparisons a year ago were so easy, you know, because everything had stopped. But the same thing with the job market. We saw so many jobs, millions go away.
Carol,
and that's what?
What happens if we get 1 million plus jobs created? Can Jay Powell really go out there at the next Fed meeting and say we're staying put till 2023?
Well, yes, because there's still 5 or 6 million, 7 million jobs that
7
still have
million.
to come back.
I think he can. And look, I think the headline number is certainly important, but there's a long way for this jobs market to go. And especially if we think about how uneven the jobs recovery has been. professionals, like people like who work at keyboards and can work remotely, they've been fine. But young people, you see minority and women workers languishing below their 2019 employment levels. We got to look closely at these numbers because it has been a K-shaped recovery and it has been an uneven recovery.
Because you think about the people who maybe don't come back, what does that do to productivity, Romaine?
Yeah.
And just further comments, Carol, of course, that we are looking through inflation and just all eyes here on perhaps maybe a single mandate, and that is employment.
Sounds like we're going to have a good week because there's lots to look forward to. All right, that's going to do it for our cross-platform coverage on Bloomberg TV, Bloomberg Radio, also on YouTube. We're going to be back again tomorrow at the same time, same place, everyone.